I would challenge women to go from awakening Aphrodite to owning Aphrodite, because it's our birthright to be that amazing. Even birthrights don't get fulfilled through expectations. And when we do the work, the conscious work that there's to do, every one of us can be that amazing. We're not born that way, right? Even though it's our birthright, we're born human. So we have to keep discovering ourselves, what I would call human spirit, and bring it into this very physical domain run by instinct.
In today's busy world, how can we find the inspiration, knowledge, and energy to live a healthy and empowered life? If we balance and harmonize our mind, exercise our body, live according to the laws of nature, and connect to spirit, can we find a way to heal, become our authentic self, and live our purpose with love? I am your hostess, Amy Fournier, and welcome back to Awakening Aphrodite. Welcome back to Awakening Aphrodite with Amy Fournier. This show is about helping you to be healthy and fit in mind, body, and spirit, as well as harmonize your masculine and feminine energy, tap into your intuition, your true source of power, and awaken your authentic self. I love this show today, everybody. This is such an epic episode. I know you're going to enjoy it so much because we have Alison Armstrong on the show. Do you know who she is? She is really huge in the field of men and women and relationships and us understanding each other so we can have more harmonious relationships, getting along, getting to just what makes the other gender tick, and just how can I be happy in my relationship and have more peace and harmony and fulfillment and all that good stuff. Alison started her journey over 30 years ago, and she's still going strong. I can't even believe how prolific this woman is, not only with like best-selling books and lots of online courses and just super active in guest speaking and appearances and all that stuff, but she even has her own app. Okay, I think when you have your own app, you've probably kind of made it and you've arrived. That's probably a good barometer. Pretty amazing, huh? So yes, I was psyched she agreed to come on and talk with us today, and I can't wait to share her with you. She has been passionate about enriching humanity by providing illumination, which will empower people and help us make choices from our spirits. Isn't that cool? I love that idea. And we talk about, how can we create an environment that helps our partner feel safe so they can open up and express their true selves. Isn't that beautiful? So we just have a really cool heart-to-heart discussion, and I just basically listen a lot to Alison's wisdom of her experience in working over 3 decades with men and women. One of the main messages that Alison gets across in the show is honoring ourselves. Her number one message is to honor yourself first. And what she says is, if you don't honor yourself first, then all is lost. And that's a quote. So she explains that to us. And I think it's super powerful, super important. And I know you're going to enjoy that. We also talk about understanding and respecting your own needs, the hunter mentality, and the over-masculinization of women, the difference between influencing and control, and how we can influence without control. And I ask Alison what one gender wants the other to know. You're going to love her answers on this. Super powerful. And lastly, I ask Alison how we can awaken Aphrodite in us, and she gives a really cool addendum, her little addition to not only awakening Aphrodite, but something else, which I agree is completely critical once you've got her awake, what you need to do. So, strap on your seatbelt. You're going to love this one. Please share the show with people who want to harmonize relationships and, just want to go to that next level in their fulfillment, because, life is all about relationships, isn't it? All right. Enjoy this episode with Alison Armstrong. And welcome back to Awakening Aphrodite with Amy Fournier. Today, my guest is the one and only Alison Armstrong on Awakening Aphrodite with Amy. A. Did I get them all? Welcome, Alison.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I am so thrilled to sit down with you. You are like the expert on men and women and your journey since the early 90s. Wow, what a huge body of beautiful work you've contributed to the world. There's so much we could get to, but let's just start with, where are you at today with your work, Allison, is with this trajectory that you've had? Like, are you kind of in any like epiphanies or revelations of like, all right, since 91, I've been doing this and here we are in 2000, like, where is Allison at in her work?
Wow. Thank you for that question. Instead of assuming that I'm some particular period in the last 32 years. And it's actually one of the things that I teach men to ask women, what are your favorite questions? Because one of the things that has women feel safe is when someone's interested in us in a way that we'd like to be interested in. And so our favorite questions usually have to do with our passions. And if a man asks about, like, where are you traveling next? Or how are your grandchildren? Or what are you learning now? Or whatever your favorite questions are, they get access to our passion, which frankly, when a man's listening to a woman talk about something she's passionate about, he can listen like 10 times longer.
That's a turn on. It's a turn on. Somebody who's alive inside is interesting.
Yeah. And it doesn't even have to be a turn on in a sexual way.
Right.
That life force is being transferred and they're enlivened and they have a greater sense of well-being. Yeah. And so it's funny what you asked me, because the question, one of the questions my husband would ask me, one of my favorite questions is he would say, what's it like to be you now?
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, because I can't not learn, right? And then what I'm learning transforms the way I'm seeing men or women or human beings or what's going on the planet now. And then that affects how I see myself and what's my part. Since I was young, I've always thought of my job as heaven on earth. And I used to think everything that wasn't heaven on earth, I had to fix. And then a big breakthrough in my early 50s was, what's my part? It's not all mine. What's my part? There's so many other people who are driven by the same thing, however they word it, Mm-hmm. So thank you for asking. And I would say that if you start in the early 90s, and it's funny, Amy, because we started recording things. I called it If Allison's Ever Hit by a Bus. We recorded things for archival purposes. I did not expect the recordings to be used in my lifetime, and I didn't expect them to be so widely available, like all over the world. And so it's an amazing time to get to be a teacher and to discover things. I can discover something in the morning, have it recorded before I go to bed, have it available in the world within a few days. It's astonishing. Mm-hmm. What a time to be a messenger, right? And so the evolution has gone from, thinking men are just dysfunctional, broken women, to falling in love with them, to being surprised that they didn't want to talk about work and sports. They wanted to talk about women and love and commitment and family. And that had me start seeing women through men's eyes, which is astonishing and has continued to transform me. And so I wasn't surprised, Amy, when you said you have a significant number of men who listen to the podcast. Because when I think of Aphrodite in that classic painting, on riding in on the waves on the shell.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, she's all those things that are irresistible to men, right? She's got curves to beat the band, and there's a receptivity in her, a softness, not just in her body, but in her being.
Yeah.
But don't ever forget, she is a god. And she is powerful. Yeah. And that was one of the things that surprised me the most in listening to men talk about women, is they know we are all that. And so many men have told me, oh yeah, my wife's smarter than me. That's why I married her. And so, all this, like, I've been searching for the good reason, right, for what men were teaching me, and then the good reason for why women do what we do. And these questions pop into my head, and they have from the very beginning. And until about 6 months ago, I thought it was my brain. Until I discovered I'm even more guided than I knew, and always have been. And the questions popped into my brain were from a higher consciousness directing the research.
Wow.
Starting with, what if men are responding to women? And then, what if there's a good reason for that? And then, what if no one's misbehaving, including you? And then what shaped my work since 2016 now is this thing that just burst out of my mouth, which often happens when I watch videos. I say things I don't know.
Me too.
Yeah. And like the Queen's Code, I researched what was needed for that book for over 15 years. Like, I needed to learn what triggered women to disempower men, all the ways they disempowered men, and then how they justified that men deserve to be disempowered, right? And what they were afraid would happen if we didn't keep stealing their power. Right. So, and there's so many variations on it, right? So I studied and studied and studied that for ages, until finally I knew that I knew how to write the book. But when I sat down to write the book, I didn't write it. I didn't write it, despite the outline, despite, it having been picked up by a major publisher, and then I took it back after the way they treated the manuscript. When I sat down to write it, a screen opened up and a movie started playing, and I typed as fast as I could. And it takes about 1.5 years for most people to write a book that's almost 100,000 words. I typed it in 3 weeks. Wow. Yeah, Keys the Kingdom, the prequel, 46,000 words. That took 8 days to type, because it was also a movie. And
wow, you
so
just channeled it.
Yeah, that I didn't.
Wow.
It took a long time to own that word. I didn't know what that was. Yeah. But wow. So I'm letting myself be much more guided. And what popped out of my mouth in 2016 was, honor yourself first, or all is lost. And it came out, and then I had to find out what it meant. And that's really what I've been doing since then, is finding out, what does that mean in all these different domains, and what human instincts, whether male or female, or before male and female, because they're human instincts that then have gender expressions, and then there are instincts that the expression isn't even just gender, it's gender modified by, you could call it state of mind. Are you in a committed state of mind, which creates focus and intention, and a lot of testosterone being spent, and a lot of tension created by things like deadlines, and naturally screens out everything the mind has decided is irrelevant to that destination, which is one of the things that gets so many women and men in trouble in romance, because when they've decided they're going to get married, they're going to find the one, they're going to have a family, and they meet someone that they think, oh, this could be the one, then their mind screens out everything that would disprove that.
Hope you're enjoying the show, everyone. I'm here with Wade Lightheart from Bioptimizers Company, which is my favorite supplement company. And I know if you're subscribing to my show, you are interested in having a healthy lifestyle, which of course involves a healthy diet. How much of your diet includes raw foods? A lot of people don't eat a lot of raw foods, which might mean they're a little bit low in enzymes and have trouble with energy. So Wade's going to help us understand what the role of enzymes are in our diet and why they're vital for us to not only function, but have good energy.
Yes, enzymes are the catalysts inside the body. There's over 25,000 different enzymes that science is aware of. And they're an essential component which are in every animal's diet because they eat their food raw, except humans. We cook our food, and there's advantages to cooking our food, but anything over 114 degrees, it's lost all of enzymes. It's been pasteurized, if it's been irradiated, so almost everything that you get has been irradiated. And that means we have to make our own enzymes to digest our food, which takes away from our enzymatic capacity for other things. That's why you get the turkey dinner syndrome. You feel tired and de-energized after eating the biggest meal ever. Why? You don't have enzymes present. So I ran into trouble a number of years ago because I didn't understand this concept. And fortunately, I found Dr. Michael O'Brien and Dr. Edward Howell, who educated me on the role of enzymes in optimizing our digestion, because it's not what you eat, it's what you digest, absorb, and utilize, as well as what you eliminate. And enzymes are a key component of that process. So my business partner and I, Matt Gallant, we set about making the world's most comprehensive enzyme with a particular focus on proteolytic enzymes, since undigested proteins are the most inflammatory aspect of our diet that creates a whole lot of problems. And most enzymatic formulas are very low in protease because they're very expensive. They also don't have the full spectrum of proteases. We have 5 different types that work in all pH levels. Our cultured enzymes are 100 to 1,000 times more powerful than what you would find in food. Plus, our enzyme blend of Masszymes has 17 different types of enzymes. So it will literally break down just about anything. You can check out our site, which has them breaking down a steak in the cup. And It's fantastic. We also have videos where you can throw it in a bowl of oatmeal, a couple caps, and it turns it to liquid in a couple minutes. When you see these products working, it will change your life. But more importantly, when you start ingesting them, that bloated feeling, that heavy feeling after a meal, the inability to eliminate and feel great, or that brain fog when you wake up in the morning will be gone when you use Masszymes regularly.
I love it. And Wade, you can use them either on an empty stomach for one purpose or with food for another. Do you want to explain to us the difference why you go empty versus with food when taking Masszymes?
Yes. So I've been an avid fasting person for many, many years. And the benefits of fasting is largely about you free up your enzymatic bank account in order to start healing the body. And so I decided that I would start adding enzymes on an empty stomach and during fast to see if I could accelerate recovery and healing. And it turns out I was able to do so, as well as many of my clients, to the point today that some of the top surgeons here in Beverly Hills are advocating Masszymes on an empty stomach to their clients to increase their outcomes from surgery by recovering. And that's because of the action that they will be absorbed and utilized in your system and turned into a systemic enzyme as opposed to a digestive enzyme. And that's the potency and power of our enzyme blends.
Well, I'm going to go take some right now. That's why it's one of my favorite Bioptimizers products. And you can get yours, you guys, at a discount by entering AmyF10 at checkout. AMYF as in Fournier 10 at checkout. And try your Masszymes.
I teach men and women, first start with honoring yourself.
Yes.
If someone's going to be that important in your life, what are the qualities they need to generate being? What are the behaviors that, as who they are, connects with your life that you need them to generate and express and support? And that without those things, you're literally better off alone.
Yes.
And we have such a strong instinct as herd and pack animals, is one way to say it. So there's even pre-human. there's nature itself. And so we have such a bond to survive, right? This drive to couple, whether it's to live in the same cave and defend yourselves from the tigers together, right? Or it's which so glad to be past the age of, who's my baby daddy? Who's going to father my children? Who's going to protect and provide for all of us, right? So much instinct, just driving that period of our life that, there, I don't know, volumes dedicated to what happens to women when we're past childbearing age, right? The like, it's like being broken out of a kind of, I don't know, it's not a trance, but this like, what what was that all about? And then we have to watch out for the new version. Am I going to die alone? Don't want to die alone. I want somebody to grow old with. And what happened in my work a little over 3 years ago, I think, my husband died, and I thought I was going to be 81 when he died, not 58. And I thought I would be past all that romance stuff and all that sex stuff, and I wouldn't need any of that stuff. And then all of a sudden, I am single, and the instinct to find a new protector and provider, and then god awful sex drive, which nobody.
Oh yeah, that.
Nobody warned me. Nobody warned me a steady diet. What a steady diet, right? Given my commitment to how much sex has to do with well-being, and so, and how shy men get about generating sex when they're emotionally involved with us. They can be crushed so easily. So I just watch for signs from my husband getting kind of, and then I would initiate sex. And because he was looking for signs, that were all wrong. And we talk about that in sex and our understanding women and our understanding sex and intimacy online courses. And but I didn't know. And then my son, God bless him, my kids are watching me, and my son stayed with me for a month after Greg passed, and he watched this crazed person, and he's like, Mom, grief is an aphrodisiac.
Oh,
like,
never thought of that.
Oh, thank you. Okay. It also amps up the amygdala, right? The worry center of the brain, which is already bigger and more active in women. And the what ifs, my best friend's husband passed 10 days ago. And I just getting to be with her as her mind went what if wild. And so it's been like a digging deeper, if you would, right? Like first discovering maybe I knew nothing about men and they weren't a kind of woman. And then finding so much out about women from them, and then finding things that were, wait, this isn't just male or female. We all do this. And even children do it. And even people who don't identify with any binary, right? Like it still happens. This is the human level. And then, this is even before the human level. This is, one way to look at the planet is what I would call a hierarchy of instincts. And procreate is the highest, and then protect, and then provide. And every species risks its life in order to procreate. Every species. And it doesn't matter whether it's a tree or a bug or a virus or a human. Every species risks its life. And there's a funny video of two enormous caribou fighting it out in the middle of the ski slope here in Steamboat while people are skiing and chairlifts are running and they're going at it. So, and then protect is the priority for providing. And when I started looking at that and then going backwards, like, oh, what happens with people is that we love being in an overflow of the desire to give, right? We love being in that space and we want people to want to give. But we don't know there's an instinct I call decide and provide. Right? I spend most of my time telling people do ask and do tell, right? Because we decide what other people need. And then we make a plan to provide it for them and we implement the plan. And then they're not cooperating with our plan to provide for them. Never mind, we didn't check it out with them. This is the problem I'm trying to solve. And this is what I'd like to provide for you. And how I like to be appreciated is no, decide, provide, and then be pissed at not being appreciated. And oh my gosh, so much mischief. But then what happens is we want people to be there, but then we'll do something that occurs to them as an attack. So like a man wants his wife or girlfriend to be overflowing like Aphrodite with love, right? But he doesn't know when he raises his voice, he scares the puppy out of her. And she's now in the perception of a threat in some sequence of fight, flight, and freeze. And if she's a fighter, she's going to attack. If she's a freezer, she's going to withdraw, which it'll take him a while to notice. And then he'll be like, what happened? Right? What did I do now? Which is usually the wrong way to put it. What's wrong with you now? Right? So we have to teach each other about that. And then women don't know how much interrupting a man throws the train off the track and they just stop talking and they're disempowered and we think they're shallow when no, they're the opposite. They are deep, deep wells to the center of the earth, but you interrupt them, they stop putting the bucket down to see what else they can show you or tell you. And so like a man will experience being attacked and his instinct, even when he's under attack, he still has the instinct to protect the other person, which is why they disarm themselves. We talk about this in the Queen's Code. But then if they have to protect themselves from that person, there's no way they can provide anything for them, right? And then it even goes back up to procreate. Procreate isn't just sex and babies. Procreate is there are some people who never get out of procreate. They're called entrepreneurs.
Really? Okay.
And procreate trumps protect. So women want this, they want to be with a type A man. They want to be with, someone of high ambition.
Alpha.
They want an alpha male.
Yeah.
And then they're stunned that he bet the mortgage payment on the next business deal.
Or he works all the time. They don't see him enough.
They complain about that or the priority of that, but it was predictable.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Greg early on in our courtship about women who wanted, they all wanted to marry a rich man. And he worked for rich men as a corporate accountant. And he said, don't women know how men get rich? And I looked at him and went, what do you mean? He said, they work all the time and they don't spend their money. And it's like, oh, women want a rich man in order to spend his money.
Right.
And
yeah.
I know that's how my mom was with my dad, and then was flabbergasted when she had a small allowance instead of access to everything he'd grown up with, and I doubt she ever forgave him probably to this day. But so it's basically that. And I keep like discovering something else in one domain, like interacting with men in our Smart Singles program. And then I like try to drill down to where it is. And like, if you want up to the minute, just last week, I was talking to a woman who, she's in our Smart Singles, and she thought what she wanted out of it was to learn how to keep herself full all the time, like that her tanks were always full. She was always the embodiment of her highest values. She was always her best qualities. And how come she wanted that? It's a strategy, because men committed to her quickly. And then when her tanks were empty and she reacted poorly, they left her. And so she thought the solution was never have empty tanks, never react poorly. And
oh boy.
Yes, that was a strategy. And this is often where we go. If only I were more perfect, he would treat me perfectly. If I were more perfect, he'd feel the right way about me, and then he would act accordingly. If he felt the right way about me, he would treat me right. And we think he already knows what right is. And there's a line in Viola Davis's autobiography. I just wanted to kiss her, and I wish she said it 12 times. She said, I wasn't a good girlfriend. I didn't teach him how to treat me.
Oh, yeah. Well, isn't that Eleanor Roosevelt who said we treat people how to treat us, or we teach people how to treat us? We
do. And something I learned from horsemanship, what you let them do, you teach them to do.
Yeah.
And so much of my work these days is about boundaries and how to set them, where to set them, why to set them there, when to present them, how to follow up on them, and what to do if somebody doesn't care what your boundaries are, how quickly you find that out, and how quickly the end.
Yes.
I did a course recently called Dating with Distinctions. And the 4th session is really about how do you use dating apps, put dating apps to work for you. And I have them be put to work in sorting by boundaries, sorting by, does this person respect what I've asked them to do? Does this person read? Does this person follow instructions? Does this person honor my request? And if at any point they don't do any of that, end, and especially the end before you're in their physical presence.
Yeah.
And
why bother? Why take it to the next step?
Why
be in their physical presence if they do that?
Why amp it up, and why endanger yourself? If they don't care about what you need, and then you put yourself in their presence, you have endangered yourself.
Right.
And even endangered yourself by, what if in their physical presence chemistry sets in, too much chemistry,
and you don't think straight on top of it,
and now you're going to betray yourself right and left. So anyhow, it's just, as I was talking to, let's just call her Lisa, as I was talking to her about what Smart Singles is about, and just saying, I'm going to tell you straight, when your boyfriend broke up with you, you dodged a bullet, and you're dazzling, you're spectacular, and you cause in men a desire to possess, and you're mistaking possession for commitment. He wants to dib you.
The trophy, like the trophy girlfriend or whatever.
Yeah. And he didn't leave because he saw your worst. He left because he didn't do due diligence before that thing he called a commitment. And I was teasing her because she calls her worst the integrity police. And he just bolted when she called him on his integrity. And I said, a right person for you, the integrity police shows up, might react like, you want to handcuff me?
There you go. Oh,
And
I
she
love it.
started laughing
That's great.
so hard. I'm like, if they can't handle your worst,
Yeah.
it's never going to turn out. And if you can't handle their worst,
Yeah.
it's never going to turn out. And the moments we finally show the other person our worst and they don't collapse who they are, they don't lose all respect and admiration, affinity for us. They can have compassion for what brought it out and then be on our team for that to not happen instead of our job to never have that happen. Because honestly, not the worst in each other predictably. We literally have conflicting instincts. How we seek safety threatens the opposite sex. We're doomed.
Tell us about that. What are
Well,
how are they different? Like, what does a man seek for safety as opposed to a woman?
I'm happy to. Thank you for asking. But I'm going to spread it out a bit because of how many of us are functioning in a committed state of mind, which could be called masculine. It spends a lot of testosterone. It exhausts us because they have between 10 and 30 times more testosterone than us. They have jet fuel. And they also, when they're out of gas, they can't not fall asleep. We'll be out of gas and just keep going until we have literal exhaustion, adrenal burnout, which our adrenal glands produce all of our testosterone after the eggs are spent, after menopause, and even half of it, before then. So what happens is, in that committed state of mind, how we experience, and I would say secure, because men, what I've noticed, I just noticed this 2 weeks ago, right? I've only been doing this since 1991. 2 weeks ago, I noticed men use the word secure unless they're talking about communication. And then it needs to be safe to tell that person that. That's when they use the word safe. And they feel secure and they're going to be at their best when they're being productive, when they're producing results, when they're fulfilling the things they're committed to. When we're in an open state of mind, which is a connective state of mind, which women experience more naturally as a result of estrogen, and men experience it when they're not committed. So when they're not committed and not resting, you could think of it as when they're at play. When they're at play, when they're just relaxed, that's when they're the most connective. And and so in an open state of mind, we experience safety through connection, which is why your favorite questions are important, because that gives you a chance to connect. And if you're connecting over your passions, then you're connecting at a much more enlivening level than, say, notice the people we have in our life how we can connect with them is through complaints, gripes. It should be, right? Yeah. So productive versus connected, right? And so what often happens is the person who's in the open state of mind will attempt to connect with a person in a productive state of mind, and so we'll interrupt them, because the focus, whether it's male or female, the person who's focused occurs as not available. So we'll interrupt them in order to have that we're here together moment. And but in order to have that moment, we've just interrupted them. Yeah. And one of the things I learned about a focused state of mind is not only is it the access to productivity, but when you're in a focused state of mind, especially for men, it occurs as peace. It occurs as a peaceful state. And that's why they get so frustrated when they don't have what they need to be productive, because it busted them out of this peaceful state that, and women don't know how much men crave peace. And so he's peaceful and productive. And then this woman he adores pops into his home office. Oh, honey, I just want to tell you something. What?
Yeah.
And then she's like,
Yeah.
ah, right? So she's looking to connect, and now she's more disconnected. And then he's was being productive, and now he's not productive, and now she's upset. Right? So these are things that can be solved easily once we're aware of what's happening. But most people don't even know it's happening. It's all compelled by instinct. And so even as something as, if my door is shut, don't interrupt me unless the house is burning down.
Yeah.
Even a boundary that's just, this is the indication of a shut door. And my boyfriend, he's so amazing. One thing that's amazing about him is, since the very beginning, if I were upset, he would do the opposite of what men are inclined to do. When men are upset, they want to be alone to calm down and collect their thoughts and get clear. And so when a woman's upset, their impulse is to leave her alone so she can calm down, collect their thoughts and get clear, not knowing that they may have just left her alone with her worst enemy, what I call the rage monster in her head. Yes. And so Dan has always, when I'm upset, he's always come to me. He's always found me. And he'll be like, do you want to hug it out? And I can say, I'm not ready yet. Would you like to talk? No. I need to do the self-cleaning oven first and find out what's me and what's you. Nice. Okay, let me know when you're ready. But I had to teach him when we were long distance, if I'm upset and I shut my bedroom door, I am protecting you from me.
Nice.
All other times, if I leave the door open, come find me. Thank you for saving me from the rage monster. But if I close the door, I'm saving you from the rage monster.
That's awesome.
I
love that. I love that example. That's awesome. Yeah. So powerful. My goodness. Well, of course, time is flying by here. I just have to say, I'm so glad you went into the honor yourself first principle. That is the foundation of a lot of your work, because it's what I've learned as I've gotten older. You know, we're hearing about self-care these days and self-love and all this, but why do so many of us have such feelings of guilt when we do things that nurture ourselves? It seems to always be a struggle for people to have to justify their self-care. And so we know that understanding ourselves, our needs, our desires, and what it takes to keep ourselves functioning well is the primary requirement to really coming to a relationship with a full tank, and honoring our own needs, and then expressing them to the partner, and expecting them to honor them in some regard too. Could you perhaps give some guidance for the people, mostly women, that have trouble honoring their own needs? Because we're caretakers, and like for me, my dogs always come first. Like right now I have a new puppy, and my whole workout routine is kind of gone out the window. It'll come back, but so in other words, we're caretakers, others first. What it would be your advice for us to honor ourselves first, for people who are givers and tend to sacrifice too much?
Well, first, to know that it's not personal. As herd animals, which is one of the things I find fascinating, that human beings are both predator and prey.
Yeah.
And as prey, we're herd oriented. As predator, we're pack oriented. That's where alpha male comes from. But both pack and herd have status as a component of survival. What's your status? And the lead mare in a herd is paying attention to the well-being of the herd. So food and water and shelter, and somebody needs some support, they're paying attention to that. And I got to witness this firsthand. And the stallion, if they're in the wild, the stallion is constantly circling the herd in protect mode, looking outward for threats. So he's not paying attention to well-being. He's paying attention to surviving wolves and mountain lions, etc. Mm-hmm. And so he's looking outward to protect the herd from outside threats. You can see this in the difference between men and women, where most men wake up and check the news. Most women need to be protected from the news.
Yes.
And allowing ourselves that. Like, no, I'm not going to disempower myself by knowing about something I can do nothing about. That just sucks the life out of me. I'm going to do my part. I'm going to leave all the rest to other people who it's their part. But also, if you watch a stallion, the only time he's distracted from protecting the herd is when he catches a whiff of a mare in heat. And I've got to witness this too. They go bananas. They completely lose their brains. And then they risk their lives to mate, and they risk the lives of the entire herd to mate. So it's just part of who we are, whether we're paying attention to threats from within or threats from without. And when I started paying attention to women being the qualities that they most wanted to be, and this was back in 1997, the first time I did a course on it, I like to work with the design instead of us having to overcome it. Yep. So how we help women figure out what they need is first to choose the qualities that they most want to embody for the people they love. Wow. And so, like, as a mother, which mothers are famously exhausted, and then we get snarky, and then we hate ourselves for being snarky, the quality I most wanted to embody for my young children was patience. So you start with whatever qualities you most want to embody, and then you look at what puts that quality in your body, because if it's not in your body, it's not accessible. And you can fake patience, but we actually unconsciously, I need to be patient. We'll look in our bodies for the feeling of patience. Oh crap, I'm all out of patience. Well, I'll just act patient, right? Or yeah. I'm all out of compassion.
Act as if, but you're really not.
But it's and pretend yep. sucks. Yeah, which is why everyone around me is taught to just say, I'm sorry, I have diminished capacities. We shouldn't try to do this now. Yeah, I don't have what it takes to do it well. And so when I connected the dots between what puts patience in my body, number one is sleep. Yeah, and there's a certain amount of sleep that if I get it, I will have patience. But then you have to pay attention to how long will you have patience? Oh, I'll have patience till about 9 o'clock at night. Yep. So God bless my husband. He put the children to bed. And then as they wanted to stay up later and later, we said goodnight to them and we went to bed. And so it's, first you identify the quality you want to be, then you identify what need when you have it met, puts that quality in your body, find as many things as you can be self-sufficient about, but also look for ways that tank can get filled from somebody else because it's often more potent. And then, yes, it needs to be presented. And the only thing I would change about what you said Amy, is you said, and then expect them to fulfill it or expect it to be fulfilled. And that's where we go haywire. Expectation is our enemy. We think if we have higher expectations, people will perform better.
Just to clarify, I just mean that if you say your needs, that you expect someone to respect your needs, not to fulfill your needs. Like it's up to them if they want to, but to kind of have your own back to communicate. This is something that's important to me. Like you said, with the boundaries with the online dating, if they're just ignoring.
I'm still going to say beware of everything that comes after the word expect.
Okay.
Because it has in its, and thank you for hearing me, it has in it, this should happen without me having to do anything.
Okay.
So now that I've told you what it is, that's all that I should have done. Or even I shouldn't have to tell you. Any decent human being would understand that I need that and do it without asking. And so there's expectation, what should happen. Mm-hmm. And then it's even worse, Amy. We judge the quality of our relationships by how well is someone fulfilling our expectations.
Yeah.
Whether we've stated them or not, whether they've agreed to them or not. And then we also judge it by how well do we think we're fulfilling their expectations, whether they've stated them or not, and we've agreed to them or not. I encountered this when I became single again. I had men saying, I'm sorry. I'm like, why are you saying that? I mean, it was disgusting to me. I'm like, if you haven't agreed to behave in a particular way with me, I have no right to expect it.
Yeah.
And they'd be shocked because women had shoulded them to death, all these things they should do that they hadn't agreed to. And then it gets even worse because let's say that we think we're failing at someone's expectations, but they're exceeding our expectations, then we're madly in love with them and want to keep them, but we're trying to figure out what to change about ourselves so they'll be the same way about us. Yeah. But oftentimes it's what we expect them to expect of us because we didn't verify. Yes. and men do the same thing. There's things they expect us to expect of them, and they'll be like, oh man, I can't live up to that. I can't afford her.
So are these like assumptions? Is it safe to say these are like assumptions about the other?
They're huge and they're invisible. Okay.
Yeah.
And they're uncommunicated.
So clarify.
Yes. And one of the things that we expect we shouldn't have to do, and I've done informal surveys on this with hundreds of people, is we think we shouldn't have to follow up.
Oh.
And people are afraid that if they follow up on a yes that hasn't been made real yet, that then someone will turn it to a no. They'll get pissed about the follow-up and it'll turn into a no. Oh. But then I've asked groups, okay, how many of you hate to follow up, don't want to have to follow up, you're afraid to follow up? Almost everyone raises their hand. Okay, how many of you have said yes to something, you meant the yes, and then something happened and you had a good or bad reason for not doing it? And when the person didn't follow up, you were glad you didn't waste the time and energy because it clearly wasn't important to them.
Wow. Oh boy. Wow.
So the trick is to follow up in a way that's not crappy, which expectations have us be crappy. I shouldn't have to do this. To follow up in a way that is gracious, meaning we do it before we're furious. Yeah. We can't be gracious when we're furious. And that we assume they had a good reason for not doing it yet. And one of the things that we teach we start at the beginning, we just keep going, that always, if you're going to follow up, you need to increase your pressure so it registers in their consciousness. when we don't increase our pressure, it becomes nagging and people become numb. We have to increase our pressure. And whenever you increase your pressure, you have to provide more clarity.
What does increased pressure look like? Just to clarify. What does that mean? Increased pressure? Stakes,
well,
like the stakes?
No, not necessarily. So if you look in your body, and we do this, and I'm going to get to do this sometime in the fall in a live in-person program. So excited. If you look in your body when you really need something, you require it in order to be who you're committed to being, and you've got to ask for it. As you're thinking about doing that, pressure is building in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And often the location of that pressure comes with emotion. It may come with anger, it may come with dread, might come with fear, it may come with despair, it may come with hopelessness, it may come with disdain, it may come with disbelief. And so the pressure, human beings are so much more sensitive than we know. The other person feels the pressure and they feel what's attached to the pressure, the way it's colored, if you will.
That's true.
And often people will say no to what you're asking for, not because of a problem with what you're asking for. It's because of the flavor of the pressure. Yeah, that has them be like, well, for whatever reason, this is icky.
Yeah, doesn't feel good. Yeah,
it doesn't feel good. So if you can find in your body where the yucky pressure is, like when you're afraid to ask or you're mad to have to ask, where does it occur? And then notice, and this goes back to honor yourself first and finding the feeling you want.
Yep.
What is the feeling that you want the pressure to come with?
Mm-hmm.
How do you want it to be colored? And I mean, this is the whole mind body stuff you've been working on for so long.
Yep.
You can actually don't ask when it's in the yucky place.
Yeah.
And then draw your mind's attention to the part of your body where you're feeling the feeling you want the pressure to come with. And then put the pressure there, literally send the ask from that part of your body. And I don't know how I got it, but I have the ability to find in other people's bodies where their best qualities are. And they can tell me how they want the pressure to show up. And then I'll ask my body to show me where it is in their body. And it doesn't just show a place. It has colors, it has movement, it has an association to something about them that's priceless and precious and spirit. And I mean, it's an extraordinary thing to get to be with. I have to warn them, I'll provide this for you, but I will see things about you you may not want me to know. And yeah, because it's in their bodies, right? Sure. And they may have this beautiful place for their pressure to come from, but it's cloaked in potentially a trauma that's had them shut down that priceless part of their body. And
that's what would definitely happen if you read me. I can tell you right now. Yikes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Release.
Yeah, release.
I do a ton of release work. And so the thing about expectation is there are things we expect that I call them dog hairs and foxtails. We didn't decide that we're going to require this in order to be an important part of our life. We just sat down on a couch and stood up with dog hairs on our ass. It came from our mother, our father, some article we read, some stuff spewed in movies and songs. We didn't mean to adopt it. And some of these things are foxtails that attach to our socks while we're meandering through a beautiful field, and then it's worked its way into our bloodstream and is on our way to our heart. And it's shutting down our ability to love because people aren't doing what they should be doing. What should they be doing? Like, I know someone who they were raised with please, thank you, and you're welcome. And they are incensed when people don't say please, thank you, or you're welcome. And I know there's so many people who expect honesty, who are enraged when someone isn't honest. Like they're entitled to people being honest, but they don't examine what do they do with other people's truths. Do they stomp on them? Do they disparage them? Do they reveal them to other people who aren't safe? Do they turn it back on them and use it against them as a manipulation?
Wow.
The truth is a very dangerous thing to tell and takes courage to tell it.
Yes.
And it's a huge part of honoring yourself first, telling the truth or not telling the truth. That person has proven they will use it against me. They don't get my truth. In fact, I don't even want to be around people who aren't going to honor my truth. And it's a big part of our curriculum is learning to change the question when someone else is speaking from what do I think about that? How do I feel about that? What do I want to say about that? To what's true for them? What's true for them? What do they care about? What matters to them? You can literally listen to a man talk about golf and discover like 5 or 10 of his highest values.
That's true.
But if you think golf is stupid, what do I think about that? Golf is stupid. But if you're listening for what matters to them while they talk about golf, you'll hear friendship, loyalty, how they're nurtured by nature, how inspired they are by excellence,
challenge,
determination with small refinements. I mean, it's honestly, for a lot of men, golf can provide almost as much as yoga, which yoga I have found is one of the highest. Yoga is probably better than sleep. And and golf's right up there for someone who's passionate about golf. And so that's why just in our program called Lux, which is where most people should start right now. Because it isn't male female, it's human, and why it's so important that we honor ourselves first, or all is lost. That if we're not honoring ourselves, we are not modeling how to treat us. And if we're not honoring ourselves, this goes back to, you brought up self-love. I'm looking at the clock. Okay, I'm gonna say this because when you said self-love, I was given the assignment October 2020. I was given the assignment. It was a shift from something I'd practiced for about 15 years, which was to let go of everything that isn't love. And every year it's been something different. And so that I had to stick my face in, and it was just awful. And then I was given the assignment, let go of everything that isn't love, especially for myself. And I was like, oh God, anything else but that. But fortunately, I'd been studying love for a long time, and what has us experience more or less love, when love itself is infinite and eternal, how can we experience more or less? And something I'd seen that was about others, I got to apply to myself, that when we put up with behavior in other people that causes us to lose respect, admiration, or affinity for them, like liking them, we experience less love for them. All 3 of those matter. And I turned it on myself. What are my behaviors or my ways of being that I lose respect for myself? I lose admiration for myself. I like myself less. And when I started paying attention to that, it all clicked. When we do things that cause us to lose respect for ourselves, we won't require what we need from other people. We don't respect ourselves enough to think we deserve it, to think we're equal to it, to think we won't actually, it's even worse than that. We won't let someone treat ourselves better than we'll treat ourselves. And once we stop behaving in the way that has us lose respect and admiration for ourselves, we stop putting up with behavior in other people that has us lose respect, admiration, affinity for them. And that is the foundation of boundaries.
Wow. 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 Allison. Wow. I can't even talk. That's just like my mind is totally blown off my speakers here. Hey, I really hope you're enjoying the episode today. And I'm into holistic health and fitness, as I'm sure you are too, because you're here. Everybody these days seems to be into crystals and sacred geometry and essential oils and all this cool stuff that we're learning about Mother Nature and her beautiful medicinal gifts to us. Well, I bet you have a crystal in your house. I know I've got a whole bunch. So I have my friend Ross Newkirk here because he is the creator of Conscious Technologies, which produces a bunch of beautiful products that we can all have in our homes to help harmonize our environment, get us on higher levels of frequency and vibration so we can heal, create, feel good, de-stress, all that good stuff. And one of the things that he offers are things called the Vogel cut crystals. These are very unique crystals. They're not your average day crystal, folks, not the ones you're going to find at TJ Maxx or even Whole Foods. These are the Mercedes-Benz of crystals. And Ross is here to explain to us how his wife, who's also a healing practitioner, uses these crystals in her practice to help her patients heal and harmonize. Ross.
These crystals are called Vogel cut crystals, and Marcel Vogel was the one that came up with this design crystal. He spent years researching and studying crystals and found that crystals in their natural state and environment all have their own unique frequencies to them. But if you're able to cut a crystal a specific way, which is what our Vogel cut crystals are cut like, you can actually take and cohere and focus and amplify energy through these crystals. So just like a laser can focus a light beam, a crystal can be cut to focus and amplify energy. And so my wife at her center, the Awaken Wholeness Center in Rhode Island, she actually does work with crystals all the time. And she uses the crystals to actually cut energetic cords. She calls it cord cutting, and energetic cords that are basically attached to people, old programs and so forth. And she's able to utilize these tools to amplify energy and intention and remove and cut off these cords that are often holding people back. The specific angles, the growth angle of the actual quartz itself, the intention that's needed while cutting the crystal all go into creating these amazing, finely tuned instruments.
And Ross, how can people get their Vogel cut crystals, not to be mistaken for maybe a Google search that you might do, because there's a lot of knockoffs out there, crystals claiming that they're Vogel cut because, people in this industry, unfortunately, don't all have integrity and they're just going to slap that name. It's like the organic label and it's really not organic or something of that nature. So they might claim Vogel crystal, but you have to make sure you get a verified, certified Vogel cut master crystal creator guy, whatever the term is. Like, these are the real deal guys, and you'll know because they work as opposed to the ones that don't work. But Ross, how can they get theirs, and even at a discount?
Yeah, actually, we have them up on your website. You have them on your website, amyfournier.com. And if they enter Fit Amy TV 10, they can get 10% off their Vogel cut crystal. You get to choose between which Sherpa line bag that you would like with your crystal. They all come with a handmade bag that we make as well, and they're beautiful tools. So thank you.
I know we're at the end here. I just am so grateful for your wisdom. Incredible. We're going to talk about how people can find these amazing courses. But final question for you, any parting advice for what you feel each gender wants the other to know? Like, what would men just love for women to know, and what would women love for men to know?
Men would love women to know that they already love us. We don't have to work for that. In fact, the harder we work at it, the sadder they are. They see us contort. They're not intimidated by our strength. They're looking for it. When they say they're intimidated, it doesn't mean you're too strong for me. It means I can't find anything I can contribute to you. And so one of the biggest things that women can do is make a list. What do you really need from a man? What will you let him give you? Because if he can't find something of value to him that you'll let him give to you, he has to go find somebody who will.
Yeah.
And for men, and I encourage everyone on the homepage of our website, at the bottom of the page, it says, why are men and women so different? And it's a free sample of our Understanding Women course, a half hour out of our Understanding Women course that is fundamentally where gender divides.
Okay.
And it's about safety.
Yes.
And as a woman watching, because you're seeing a video where I'm teaching a co-ed group about men and women and safety, if you watch the men and their reactions, that's the reaction of every man. I've never met a man who wasn't shocked by how safety is for us.
Oh, yeah.
And why we have to pay attention to it so much and why we already do. And then you'll get to see how safety is for men and why they are clueless, meaning they have less clues than they need about how to help us. They can't make us feel safe, but help us feel safe. And yeah, so that's what I would say to the answer to your question. And at AlisonArmstrong.com is where you'll find the Queen's Code audiobook, which it's so much better than the written book because I'm reading, I'm narrating the movie I watched. And we found out that everyone has read the written book since 2012, which is 90,000 people. Unthinkable for a self-published book, but they all read it with their filters. So the tone of voice, the intensity of emotion, the sincerity was all filtered through what they thought these men and women would sound like. If they wanted to start with a program, I would say to start with Lux. It stands for Liberation, Understanding, and Extraordinary Relationships. And the liberation is because not only are the ideas freeing and healing, but we actually use 3 of the Sedona methods to release basic human compulsions that ruin our relationships. And it works. And it also will teach you to watch for how we're listening, because how we're listening is more important than what we're saying. And how we're listening is associated with how we're being. And how we're being is more important than anything. It's the loudest language and what everybody's reacting to. And and why it's so important to honor yourself first. Like it makes a very good argument for that. And when you know that honoring yourself first is how you give the best gifts to other people, and that when you're sacrificing yourself, they end up with the trash, they end up with the leftovers. And too many romantic relationships are half-empty swimming pools trying to fill up from the other. And we wonder why we're diminished by them. And so much of my work happened being in a traditional, in many ways, marriage, right? With children and incredible support from my husband, who didn't expect me to ever make a nickel. When we published Keys to the Kingdom, he wanted me to print 100 of them. But he still, wanted me to publish it, but start with 100.
Wow.
It's hilarious. And but after he died, and I realized I wanted to be in a relationship again, which took a while to want to do that. I didn't think I ever wanted to live with somebody again. And we have such an instinct, right, to hide in the cave together. And we talk about this in Understanding Women, how men drive women crazy by how many times they leave the house and come back and go out and come back and go out and come back. And don't you know you're laying down scent for the tiger to find me? Make a list. Leave once. Right?
That's funny.
It's really funny. Our instincts are hilarious, but
I never thought of it like that. You're leaving
oh
scent
God.
for the tiger.
Oh God. Oh God.
Oh,
I've
boy.
surveyed women. How many times can you leave the house without getting anxious about you're leaving the house again in the same day?
Wow.
And the most I've ever seen is someone can go out 3 times. The least I've ever seen is 0.
That's a lot.
It's common 1 or 2 times.
Okay.
But it's so funny. As you can tell, I can go on and on and on and on. And I really just want to say thank you for how you started. So many people come into a sliver of my work, either like through Instagram or they listen to something on Audible, which everything on Audible was recorded before 2007.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And although we gave it to Audible in 2013, right? But all the new stuff is on our websites, and there's always new stuff because I can't stop learning. And I didn't mean to be prolific. It just turned out that way. And so like some of the conversations you and I have had, Own Your Ultimatums is a really good place where my work on boundaries has arisen. In Sync with the Opposite Sex, which is on Audible. We did that in 2006, and it's still a cornerstone of our Smart Singles program. It's still completely valid, and starts with what kind of situation do you want? You don't have to pick one of the 3 options. I'm in an adoring, uncommitted relationship living in my boyfriend's backyard. And I will not look at him.
Sounds great.
It's fabulous. It's fabulous.
Oh, geez.
But I haven't committed because I have minimum requirements that it'll take a couple more years to satisfy. I'm not, that's my due diligence. I will not commit. I'm not going to give up the right to go, this isn't good for me anymore. And this isn't good for you anymore. So anyhow, Own Your Ultimatums, In Sync with Opposite Sex, A Great Ask and Beyond. That's about how do you turn a yes into reality in a methodical way, and why it's important to do that, and why people don't live in false hope instead. All this would be under Get Started, under online courses. Shop is all like short form kinds of things. We have 11 things on our 11 audios on our app now, so you can have me in your pocket or in your purse.
Your own app. That's crazy. Then you have the intensives, the graduate program. Wow, and the live in-person events. So much.
Yes.
So much. Well, you better be around for another 300 years because it's just is pouring through you, and it's so. I feel like in so many ways it's I don't know if refreshing is the right word, but it's just so spot on. I mean, you're obviously just dialed in, and no wonder you're so well known. So just thank you for taking the time.
You're welcome.
Energy, sharing your energy, your knowledge, your experience. I'm just so grateful. I have no doubt this is going to help so many people, my audience. I please everyone listening and watching, do check out Allison's website. It's her name, Alison Armstrong with 1 L. And everything, as she explained, is right there for you. You might see me at one of the online groups myself. I think I definitely, sounds like I have to join at least one, if not multiple.
That's awesome.
And
may I say one other thing that came
please.
up when you asked what
Please.
men wish women knew?
Yes, please.
I love what you're doing. And I would challenge women to go from awakening Aphrodite to owning Aphrodite.
Okay.
Because it's our birthright to be that amazing. We just, even birthrights don't get fulfilled through expectations. Many crown prince has been deposed by acting entitled. And when we do the work, the conscious work that there's to do, every one of us can be that amazing. It's not, we're not born that way, right? Even though it's our birthright, we're born human. So we have to keep discovering ourselves, what I would call human spirit, and bring it into this very physical domain run by instinct.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that piece, which is a critical piece. It's not enough just to poke the bear. You got to then, live it, embody it. It's fantastic. Alison Armstrong, thank you. And thanks everybody for listening and watching. If you want to support Allison, you know what to do. Check out her work. And if you want to support me, all you have to do is subscribe, share the show, and take it to the next level by leaving a review. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Would you like to support my mission to help empower people all over the world to be all of who they truly are? If so, please subscribe to the show, leave a review on iTunes, and share it with a friend. And if you're looking to take immediate action to align your energy and optimize your health, visit amyfournier.com. Thanks for listening to Awakening Aphrodite. Let's awaken her together in you. I'm your hostess, Amy Fournier, and I already can't wait to be with you again and for you to hear what I have planned for the next show.
Thanks for listening to Awakening Aphrodite with Amy Fournier. To learn more about Amy, check out her website, amyfournier.com. That's AMYFOURNIER.com. You can also check out Amy's live and on-demand virtual fitness and yoga classes, and sign up for her newsletter to receive a free mini ebook of 3 of her top tips for making holistic health a lifestyle. Again, that's amyfournier.com, and get your ebook sent to your email immediately. Connect with Amy on the daily on Instagram at FitAmyTV, FITAMYTV, and watch many of the podcast episodes and subtopic clips on her YouTube channel, which is also FitAmyTV. Enjoy, and we'll see you next time on Awakening Aphrodite.